looks much better than Tobago. Lots of places have, hiking trails and all sorts of natural attractions which are much better than Tobago. So we need to understand, we need to grow up, we need to mature and get over ourselves and understand that tourism is all about the experience. No, please, let me finish. Tourism is all about the experience. So it doesn't matter really and truly that you have natural beauty and, nice beaches and things. There must be that experience, and that's what tourists will keep coming back for.
And do you think that Sandals would have brought that experience?
Well, if you've ever stayed at a Sandals, you wouldn't even ask that question.
I have stayed at a Sandals. I've actually been at one of their premier resorts in Jamaica, so I know the ultimate, the butler and all of that. But guess what? I didn't leave. I did not leave that Sandals. I stayed at one in Jamaica, one in Antigua, one in St. Lucia, and I was not encouraged to leave. So that was my question. Yeah. I do understand the infrastructural development that the Sandals would bring to the island, but how would it benefit Tobago beyond the employment of the persons who are working on the regular level?
Well, Lisa, you see, that's such a myopic view that has been bandied about. And, I'll tell you, a lot of the argument that you've seen perpetrated around this entire Sandals issue, it has been, from my respectful view, it has been founded in the fires of ignorance and doused with the gasoline of stupidity. Because a lot of it doesn't appreciate what a brand like Sandals brings to your island. It doesn't matter whether you benefit directly from it. The indirect spin-off benefits are phenomenal. If you look at how Sandals markets themselves internationally, on ABC, NBC, you would see they say Sandals Grenada.
Right.
So persons who may not even know about Grenada will go there because of the Sandals. So we need to understand that. If you think of, say, for instance, wait, no, just please let me finish. If you think of, say, for instance, Las Vegas, who would think that you would build a city out in the desert and millions of people will be going to it? They're not going for the desert, for the sand. There's nothing to see in terms of natural beauty in Las Vegas.
I just want to get the clarification is that in addition to the people who are coming to go to Sandals, the persons who are for the project are saying that in additional visitors would come and stay at the various other hotels and visit the restaurants.
What you get is an uplift, Lisa.
Okay.
When the tide rises, all the boats, large and small, are lifted by the same tide. And that's what you are losing out on. The chance to raise your product, raise the standard, raise the bar in terms of service delivery, in terms of, as you yourself experience, the entire Sandals experience is something that people will go anywhere for. So therefore, once you have that, the airlines will follow, the airlift will increase, so therefore your destination will get greater international recognition simply because of having a brand like that. It's almost like, for instance, Rishi, if the Bellagio said they wanted to put a hotel in Tobago, persons who don't know anything about Tobago will come simply because of the name, the Bellagio. You know that name. So we need to understand, and we need to recognize what this is all about. This is an opportunity for Tobago to start developing its tourism product, because right now Tobago doesn't even know what its tourism product is. If you follow me.
I could agree with that.
I could tell you something. If you think of something like, somewhere like Hawaii. Now, Hawaii has built up itself into this reputation as this idyllic paradise. But when you go there, it's really the experience you're going for. Because I could tell you, collectively, the islands of the Caribbean have a lot more to offer by way of natural beauty than all the islands of Hawaii. I could tell you that. I've been there. And we have a lot more to offer. So the point is, it's the entire experience. So we need to understand that, look, it's not just to say, well, Tobago, you have the rainforest, you have the beaches. No, you need to layer that with the experience, and then now your natural attractions become the add-ons. And we need to understand that. How many persons are really going to go through the difficulty that it is now to make a booking, come to Trinidad, wait hours, get a flight to Tobago, simply to end up with something that might end up being either a substandard hotel, bad service, poor treatment, and then want to come back again? How, it's not realistic. It's not feasible.
I have another question. I know Rishi has a lot of questions for you, but we want to bring into the conversation Christopher James, who is the president of the Tobago Hotels Association, who is joining us on the phone from Tobago. Good morning, Chris. Hello?
Yeah, good morning, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Good morning. I don't know if you've been following what we've been saying so far this morning on the show.
Yes, I have, yes.
Okay, so do you want to jump in immediately into the conversation and give us your views on the departure of Sandals from the table right now?
Yes, surely. Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association is very disappointed that Sandals decided to pull out. We understand the reasons. But as Martin was saying, we need to increase the room stock in Tobago so that we get non-stop flights to Tobago. At the moment, all the flights to Tobago are shared with other destinations, and this puts a lot of people off. I also heard earlier that you said about the all-inclusive. You have to look at the range of products in the Caribbean. About 20% of people choose to only go to all-inclusive hotels. So if we do not have all-inclusive hotels, such as the Sandals, then we are losing 20% of a potential market that is traveling to the Caribbean.
Yes.
And that is a challenge because to get non-stop flights, we have to fill the whole of the flights.
Yeah.
So we need, in Tobago, we have roughly about 1,000, 1,100 tour operator quality rooms. We have stated, and it's in the THA development plan, that we need a minimum of 2,500 rooms to get non-stop flights. And we also need to diversify our originating markets. At the moment, we're far too dependent on the UK market. And with all that's going on with Brexit, that's a real concern. If there's a further devaluation of the pound, that will be a real concern. And we've not been able to attract North American airlift because we do not have the quantity of rooms that they require. American Airlines, generally, the Delta and all of these different airlines will not come in just once a week. They want to come in a minimum of 3 times a week. Some of them want to come in daily. And to satisfy that, we would need more rooms. And we just need to have the range and quality of rooms that the market is now requiring to come to these destinations.
I hear you, Chris, and I agree with you absolutely. And I see the aircrafts coming in. I fly in on Virgin to Tobago, and it's about 3-4 people, 5, sometimes 8 people coming off, and the rest going on to Grenada or to whichever other destination that the flight. So I know and I understand what you're saying. My question is, what's the guarantee that if Sandals comes in and puts up a fantastic experience hotel, what's the guarantee that the other inventory on the island would do the same and beef up? Where is the funds coming and the funding coming from to do that if it doesn't exist right now?
We've done our research, and when we talked to the other islands that have Sandals, and we actually visited Grenada and questioned everybody, from the Prime Minister to people in the street, to farmers, everybody. And it's very interesting. Martin's correct. When Sandals market their product, you've got to bear in mind, I think Sandals spend about $85 million on marketing. A lot of people will be drawn to the destination because of that marketing that Sandals is doing. When they go to the Sandals website, they may decide that's not for them. They want a smaller hotel or whatever they want. And if you listen to the anecdotal evidence from all the hotels, for instance, in Grenada, I know Sir Royston Hopkins of Spice Island has been a very big voice in this area. His occupancy and rate increased because of Sandals development. And you will find that people will come to the Sandals website, find out about Tobago or Grenada, and then start looking around for other properties on the island. And across the board in Grenada, hotels found that they had an increased occupancy and rate. We also, all the indirect jobs, I think Martin was hinting at it, agriculture, we were talking to the farmers in Grenada. The farmers in Grenada originally, I think, supplied about 30% of the goods to Sandals. But the Sandals people sent down agricultural specialists, increased production, and I think they're now up to 65% of what Sandals consumes in terms of fruit and veg. So there are many knock-on effects, the taxi drivers, tour guides, all these different things that can be buoyed, and we just need that economic driver in Tobago. The market in Tobago has stagnated. Our international arrivals have stagnated. You know, all the problems on the air and sea bridge. I've been on media for the last 2 years promoting Sandals and the fact that we need it. And that's really where we're going.
Okay.
And Mr. George is still with us, but the concern was how the deal went down when the memorandum of understanding was signed with the government and the officials from Sandals. It seemed as though that there was something untoward taking place because Afro-Raymond had to take them to court for this to be made public.
All right, Rishi, at the end of the day, from a Tobago perspective, one needs to understand, regardless of what may have occurred or not occurred or the elements of the transparency, you start off with the perspective that this is something we need. Let's understand that fundamentally. So in other words, once you start with that as your baseline, then you work out the mechanics to ensure that it happens. So therefore, if it is that you require greater transparency, yes, you call upon the government and say, hey, listen, we need to know the details, but we're not scuttling the deal. So you need to have that clear understanding as to what this does for you. So therefore you say, well, okay, look, it might be tricky, it might be difficult, but we will work it out. In other words, those who will complain about location, all right, then you say, all right, okay, look, Mr. Sandals, if it is that we have a problem with this location, let us sit down with you. We will tour all of Tobago. We will find a location. But don't start off with the premise that, okay, we don't want you. Because at the end of the day, and I mean, Chris is very correct. Lisa, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. When you have St. Lucia with 3 Sandals resorts and they are building a 4th, then doesn't that tell you something? You look at where St. Lucia is in their tourism product and their marketing and everything. You look at Grenada. Look at how that Sandals La Source, look at how that turned around the Grenadian tourism economy. And all the other hotels have benefited from it. The locals have benefited. The farmers have benefited. The fishermen have benefited. The taxi drivers, the tour operators, they've all benefited.
So, Martin,
but what about Antigua? Yeah. Antigua, they have had concerns with Sandals on the island.
No, Gaston Brown has had concerns. And Gaston Brown has had concerns because after getting the benefits of Sandals, he then says, but these tax concessions are going on too long. This was something that was signed by a previous Antiguan government. We need to understand that. We need to educate ourselves, Rishi, and not follow the idle rhetoric that sometimes is bandied about in the media.
Guys, we're going to be running out of time. We can talk about this for the whole morning. It's such a fascinating conversation. And in terms of the tax incentives, don't start me there. Oh. But, that's the conversation that as Minister Stuart Young said was a bit preemptive because the negotiations hadn't started as yet. But I would have loved to see a model different from the one that currently exists, where there are tax exemptions for like 25 years and then 50%,
understandably,
15
Lisa,
years.
Understandably,
So
but at the end of the day, look at our oil and gas companies,
yes,
which have been enjoying much greater tax concessions. Nobody complains. Nobody said that they didn't want them at the time. So we need to grow up and mature.
I'm hearing you, and I'm agreeing with what you're saying, Chris and Martin. To say that if it is that Sandals is withdrawing because of negative publicity, Sandals is no stranger to negative publicity. So does this mean that they can come back to the table?
Well, Lisa,
right?
I am hoping that they do,
Chris?
and I'm hoping that the deal is not lost entirely. I mean, the point is, in terms of that aspect of the negative publicity, I think maybe the government has to take some blame for that because they themselves, I think their approach was a top-down approach rather than, from the people going up, if you understand me. And I think there was some resentment about that. But the point is, that's how you manage that. That's why you are in government. Yeah. We put you there to manage. So therefore, to throw your hands up in despair and say, well, because people made negative comments, I'm not going ahead with this. I think that is a failure on the part of the government, and they must take some blame for that. But notwithstanding all of that, I am hoping that the deal can still be salvaged and that they can now engage in a meaningful, respectful conversation with the people and the objectors so that you understand. You bring the statistics. That's how you convince people of things. You bring your statistics, you bring your facts, you bring your figures, you bring persons maybe from Grenada who can talk about their experiences because, I'll give you an example, Lisa. Sometimes when you need to make changes, it might be painful, it might be difficult, but at the end of the day, if you have a vision as to where you're going, then you know that, look, this is going to be beneficial. The Prime Minister of St. Vincent was telling me recently of his challenges with building the new airport in St. Vincent. He said it took 10 years to achieve it. He faced the greatest opposition from his own people. and now he's the hero and the darling of the nation because everybody sees the benefit of the new airport.
Thank you so much, Martin. Chris, James, you're on the line. I want to give you the last word before we go over to the news. Chris?
Well, yes, I just hope that Sanders does reconsider. I agree we need more collaboration, we need more talk, and we need to understand the importance and value of tourism.
All righty there. Thank you so much, Chris James, President of the Tobago Hotels Association, as well as Martin George, President of the Business Tobago. Did I get it? Tobago Business. I'm going to get it right. Thank you so much.